Hi, Dennis. Sean Reitmeyer. I got your message. How can I help you?
Well, I don't know. I paid 5 grand to get your course, and when I spoke to you, I mean, you were all. I mean, you seem like a super cool guy on the phone and all. That being said, it doesn't matter. But either way, I spent over 5 grand to join your group and have not gotten anything from it. I went on to the I can't think of the name right. The whatever the thing where you get the jobs from, the bid tracker. Sorry, couldn't think of the name.
Okay.
Went on bid tracker for a couple of months, did that, got nothing. Every reply I got was either I filled it out wrong, even though I sent you to proofread it, and you said yes, fine, send it, and I sent it, and then they tell me that no, I didn't fill it out correctly, or I was missing this, missing that, and then the whole thing. And then I had one job it looked like I could have got, but then they were like, oh, sorry, we can't use you because you've never done any work from the federal government. And I called you about it and tried to use your credentials, and they were, no, that's got to be you. So, I mean, it's almost like I've done all this, and all I did was, and then I get kicked off your school thing for some reason, and you actually replied to it. And I just replied to it now because I didn't see that you replied to it. But either way, you were saying that I get kicked off, and you were asking me to send you, like, in other words, what I sent, because they didn't tell you what I sent. And all I did was I just wrote you a note basically saying that, look, man, after spending 5 grand, having your wife hook me up with the cage, paid for all that, and got my cage number, got me all set up, and I'm trying to, make something happen here, and then to get kicked in the balls, and they don't even give me proof of what I did that was so bad, other than I just didn't say, oh, this is a stellar organization, and please, you know what I mean, everybody and their brother should sign up. All I did was write on there that I had a problem that you helped me with, and it didn't, in other words, it basically told them what I've told you, more or less, but much in a nicer way. And I've basically just spent 5 grand plus the 500 to your wife, referred you to a couple of people in the meantime, and now I'm getting it stuck up my rear end, and I don't know what to do. I don't appreciate it, obviously. I
Dennis, this is the first time I'm hearing this, so
Oh, well, that's funny because you replied on the school thing. You had no problem there,
what
so this
what
is not
did
the
what
first
did
time you
I
heard it.
First of all, I remember the event happening that you said something on the forum or
December
something.
3rd. Yeah, December 3rd. You replied at 11:12 a.m. on December 3rd.
Okay, my apologies. That at this point that was 7 months ago. So if you just I'm trying to catch up here, but I don't think as I recall, it was some kind of message that you sent. It got deleted or you got banned or something, and I was trying to
Right,
ask you what it was that you said. Now I
right.
I agree that in this conversation you have now told me what you said, but calm down. I'm
But
hearing this for the
Well,
first
no,
time.
I'm sorry, dude. It's just that it's one of those things that it's kind of like it ate me at the time, and now I'm kind of going back over it and just thinking like, man, I just spent a bunch of money on this thing for nothing, and I'm just taking it up the rear end basically, and nobody. I've left messages before, and nobody calls me back. It's almost like,
Wait a
okay, well,
second. This
whatever.
is my personal cell phone number. You've had this cell phone number for,
I know,
I would think, a year, and
I know, and
you,
I and
you
I left you two other messages, and I never got a call back. So that's all I'm saying is that I never got a call back. I don't know how that works exactly.
I don't know
And
how
then
that works
or
either.
you
Because
usually you reply, "Oh, contact me through school." I can't contact you through school because I'm no longer on school.
well, I can't. My apologies. First of all, I had no idea that you had called me 2 times in the last 6 months. I usually answer my phone 18 hours a day, and
I
when
know you usually do. I
even when I
understand.
miss a call, I usually call right back. But
And
I mean,
I would agree 1,000% right up until this happened. You know what I
okay.
mean? And then you look at it from my perspective. If I make the phone calls and nobody calls me back, it's almost like, yeah, okay, we got his money. Screw him.
Oh,
You know?
and not only would I say you were never led to believe that that would ever happen to you, but even at this late date, I'm not that kind of guy. And as soon as I was aware that you were looking for me, I called you
And I appreciate
within
that.
minutes. So what are you trying to accomplish now?
Well, first off, I mean, I don't know how to do anything. In other words, I can't even get on to the school thing to learn, to try and figure out what to do. I'm just sitting here screwed. I've got a thing from West Palm Beach sent me, actually not West Palm Beach, Boynton Beach or whatever it was, whatever it is, doesn't matter, somewhere in Florida. They sent me a thing because they're looking for a FEMA to work for FEMA for them for mold remediation, so on and so forth. So I have a buddy of mine that's a mold remediator, and I was like, oh, well, maybe, you should try and bid this, if you could. I said, I've got a cage number and everything, so, we could put this together. And he basically just replied, and he says, I wanted to do it. It looks very interesting. He says, but my boss won't let me because he got screwed last time he did any work for FEMA and didn't get paid.
Okay,
So,
hold on a second. Let's stop right there because I've heard this story before. What I would like to do is have you call him back and say, hey, I just talked to a guy that's done a hell of a lot of work with the federal government, and he's suggesting to me, in other words, I'm telling you, that he did not have a contract with FEMA. He had a contract with somebody that had a contract with FEMA. In other words, he was not the prime contractor. He would have had to have been a subcontractor. So when he
okay.
says that he worked on a FEMA job and FEMA didn't pay him, that's complete and utter horseshit. Unless your friend's somebody
Well,
that you know has $100 million worth of cash in the bank, because to get a direct contract with FEMA, you have to have massive amounts of money, cash reserves. And the reason for that is when FEMA makes that phone call to their FEMA approved contractors, they've had to be able to prove to the federal government that they can mobilize mass amounts of mobilization. Okay? They have to be able to financially prove that in order to get a contract with FEMA. Now, part of what they do is they show that they have the cash reserves, but then they also show that they have mass amounts of resources, meaning subcontractors that do, roofing work, subcontractors that do excavation work to move things out, big tractors, big trailers. The prime contractor doesn't have to have that per se. He's got to be able to mobilize all the people that do. And so I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's highly unlikely that you just happen to know a guy that had a contract with FEMA.
I'm just telling you what he said, and I'm not talking to him directly. Like I said, it was a friend of mine that I thought he actually owned the company because that was my understanding of it. But he said that, I guess he's working with a group of people or something. So it's not that he's the actual owner. There's multiple owners. And the main guy is the guy that explained, or just, I didn't even talk to him. He said, look, he says, I was really stoked over this thing. He says, I love the opportunity. He says, but my boss doesn't want to touch it because he said last time he did anything for FEMA, he got screwed. And I said, well, I don't see how that's possible because, usually when you do work for the federal government, it's like, everything, as long as you filled out your contract properly and you're doing everything you said you were going to do, there should be no hiccups. And I explained, more so about it. And then basically he just said, well, can you put that, so I called you. That's what made me think about you again to see what your input would be if I could even get a hold of you again. It's like, because like I said, I've invested this thing, but I can't, haven't been able to use it or anything. But that being said I just don't know what to tell the guy. So I guess I'll just tell him that, unless maybe you're right. Maybe he didn't have a contract directly with FEMA. Maybe he had it through the city of Fort Worth and they subbed it to somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how it
it's
works.
just because, look, getting money on a federal contract is some of the easiest part of this whole process. If you did the work, you're not even having to argue with somebody about it because as long as the inspector goes out there and goes, yep, they did it, the payment function is somebody else down the chain where it's just a checkbox. Did they do the work? Yes. Pay them. It's not a withholding of money. It's not, they can't even award a federal contract unless the money is already allocated. That's against the Anti-Deficiency Act. But I've
Right.
heard this story from many people. Oh, my favorite is when they get on the internet and they say FEMA is defunct now that Trump is in office. I go, fucking FEMA's not defunct, you fucking moron.
Yeah, he's trying to close it down, or he was. I don't know if he still is, but I know he talked about it. But that doesn't mean it's closed down. Yeah,
That's right. It doesn't mean it's closed down or that it's even
well, it was the
happening
same
tomorrow.
thing when everybody lost their shit because he was the Doge thing was going on, and when
Yeah.
I was still on your site, everybody's going, "Oh man, we won't get any work," and I'm like, "Man, it won't affect the federal
Yeah, it's
government
not
as
gonna.
far as they
Yeah,
still need
even if
shit
he closed
done."
1, 2, 5, 10, 100 buildings, there's a
Yeah,
million of them out there.
right,
This isn't
right.
going anywhere. And so, yeah.
I
Um,
guess my biggest problem is getting in with the right people because I just can't, because everything I get into, I get emails all the time from people trying to sell me, oh, join my program because, you've got to, we looked at your thing and you're still missing this, that, and the other, and whatever on your, I said, well, I have a cage number. I thought I had everything I needed, but obviously I don't. Everybody else is telling me, oh, no, no. And then obviously you have all the little peckerheads that will, come out of the woodwork that are like, oh, we can fill out your contract for you, for a measly $5,000 a year. You know what I mean? We'll help you fill out your contracts. I don't need you to help me fill out my contracts. I didn't think. I thought you could help me with that, which that didn't seem. I mean, I know you looked them over, and I mean, you
well,
said
I
they were
mean,
right.
look,
So
I'm just when I review somebody's bid, I'm just glancing over and did he sign it? Did he put the dollar amount? And as I recall, we made those kinds of corrections, and you turned
right,
in some bids. When
exactly.
somebody calls back and says, "Oh, you didn't do this," my expectation is that somebody of reasonable, getting involved in this stuff is going to go, "Oh, no problem. Let me correct that." You
Right.
know,
Well, that's just it. And when I showed you what they asked me for, I said, look, they're selling me. All they tell me is I did it incorrect. Then trying to get a hold of the people on their phone is like pulling teeth. So nobody answers you over there, any of the the project managers or anything like that. So I'm sitting here, other than an email saying, oh, well, you didn't fill it out properly, and I go, okay, can you tell me what I didn't do properly? No, you should already know. It's like, okay, well, great, thanks. You know what I mean? So I don't, that's the information I get. So what do we do with that information? Stare
well,
at it and go, I guess that ain't gonna happen.
are you suggesting that that was happening over and over again, or are you saying that was one case, but it really chapped my ass?
No, that really chapped my ass. But that was no. I had 3 cases like that. I think 2 for sure. I know for fact 2. I thought there was a third, but I could be wrong, and I don't want to be a liar, so I'll just say 2.
If that had happened to me, what I would have, I can only tell you what I would have said, and what I would have said is, contact them back, try to find out who their boss is, and say, look, you have a procurement official that is responsible for getting lots of good bids. And this person's telling me that something's wrong with my bid, but they're not telling me what it is. And, you're in, you know, you've been entrusted by the public to spend public funds and you need to get lots of good bids. So your people need to be answering these types of questions. And I would have even suggested if you have a problem with that phone call, just get me on the phone, conference call me in, and I'm perfectly willing to hold people accountable within our government. They are public servants, they work for we the people. Um, and so yeah, and I've had calls like that with people in my program, so I don't know why you would have been any different. Um, as you know, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've got experience handling all kinds of problems. So look, I mean, if the phone call here is just to call up and bitch and call me an asshole, I'm happy to take that. I've
I
always said,
didn't call you an
no, no,
asshole.
I know you didn't. I used that word. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just saying if that's the sentiment, okay, I'm
Right.
happy to take an ass chewing from anybody
No, I'm
anytime.
not.
But
I
if
don't,
but
dude. I'm sorry if
on
you think I'm chewing
I
your ass. I'm
I
not.
don't.
I'm
But
obviously not happy. I mean, shit.
on the other side of this, if you're calling and saying, "Hey, I want another swing at this thing," and I spent all this money and nothing really happened, and then I have no, like I said, I never saw what you posted on there. I do remember it happening because I got a telegram message that said, "Hey, this guy Dennis Story just put some shitty comment on the forum, and I deleted it and banned him." And I
Right.
was like, let me
Well,
see what he wrote. And they said, well, when you delete it, you can't see it. And I went, well, fuck. So I texted you,
exactly.
and I was like,
Exactly.
what the hell did you say?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That there's no way for me to, because when you said, that's why I didn't reply to the post, because I was like, well, how the fuck? I mean, if I don't have a copy of it, it's not like I copied it and read it and put a PDF file because I sent a fucking email. You know what I mean? I just figured it'd be an email, and it would be there, and it would be in the archives or some shit, like you do with Yahoo or any other freaking email.
But
But
anyway,
obviously, that's not the
what I'm
case.
trying to say here is that if you want another bite at the apple, how about I just give you a couple months free access to the bid tracker system and keep working with you, and let's see if we can't turn this thing around.
That'd be, yeah. All right. I mean, that'd be great, because that's the other thing. That bid tracker, man, that eats me alive. At $500 and something dollars every month, and the months roll around quick.
Hey, look, I'm the last person on the planet that's going to take somebody and just run behind a hill and not return a phone call. That actually,
Well, I
of
appreciate
everything
that, and
that's
I
been
didn't
said
see
in,
you as being that
of
person,
everything you've
honestly.
said in this phone call, that's the one that kind of chaps my ass because, man, I'm just telling you, I don't hide behind anything, and
And I get
if you're
that.
telling me that you called me twice in the last 6 months and I didn't call you back, I'm just absolutely shocked.
I even talked to your wife one time, and she goes, and I forget what that was about, but I know what it was, because I referred somebody else in on another fella, because he didn't join your course, but he wanted to try and get his cage number and everything, and I just called her up and was like, hey, and she answered the phone right away, and was like, just told her what the situation
That's
was,
what I'm
and she
saying.
said,
I
sure,
answer the phone
I'll
right
do
away
it.
all the time, so I'm really confused by that. But regardless, we're here where we're at now,
Right.
and so yeah, I'll get with my tech people and we'll get you all set up. You've got this is my personal cell phone number. If you need to see something in school, I'm sure I can. I have no earthly idea what I don't know how to undo that, but I'm sure that I have people that can.
Okay, yeah, because whoever that's working for you or whatever kicked me off, obviously. But that all being said, is there anything, or is it too much to ask for you to send me something like you kind of explained to me, or in their form, that basically, like, there's no way that you can get screwed by FEMA because blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna fuck it up if I try to write it. I know that for a fact.
You mean
That's
to
not
write it
my
to your
forte.
friend?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Just
it's
an
real
email,
easy.
just
All we're talking about is the Federal Prompt Payment Act.
Federal Prompt Payment Act.
That's it. The Federal Prompt Payment Act guarantees you, if you Google the Federal Prompt Payment Act and read it, it will show you in there that they have 14 days to pay on approved invoices. Now, that's assuming that your guy had a contract with FEMA, which I highly
Right.
doubt.
But
Now,
I don't know that. That's what I'm saying. And if I tell him that, and he might come, that's what I said, he might come back to me and go, well, I mean, I think when I first joined the course, I explained to you that I used to work for, I didn't work directly for EFIS, but I worked indirectly for EFIS, however they like to pronounce it. But that all being said is, I did a couple BXs, did a Burger King, some shit like that for different stuff. But it wasn't me directly. I was working for someone. I was just a job superintendent, basically, that ran the jobs. But I know that one guy was complaining, or, on the one job we did, it was in, what was that? It was in, I think it was in Carolina somewhere. But whatever the base was, they didn't pay him for his AC work he did or something. And I was like, how is that? And he goes, no, he says, I won't do any more work for the federal government. They screwed me. And what it was something that, because there was a third party payer, I found out. In other words, they bid the government, and then the government was paying somebody else to get, in other words, it's sort of like me getting a job for whatever, XYZ.
okay, was
But
this a
I've got to
state?
do it through you.
Was he
So
calling it a government contract or was he saying federal?
it's federal.
You're sure?
That's all we did.
What
That
agency?
well, this was, or which one are we talking about? The old story, the FEMA story, or
No,
currently now?
current the one we're talking currently now.
Oh yeah, he was. I think it was. If I'm not, Army Corps of Engineers, I think.
Okay, then it's paid by the Treasury, not a third-party payment processor. Now,
Right. Well, somehow.
it could have been a third-party project management team, okay, but the Treasury pays on Army Corps of Engineers jobs. Now
Yeah, I
they
didn't
have
know how that
now
worked.
they
I
have
remember. Yeah.
processes like PIEE that you have to log into and do your payment applications now. That's changed since when I was in the game. But yeah, that all falls under the Federal Prompt Payment Act. Now, I want to add one more layer to the previous story on the FEMA. If he was a subcontractor to a prime contractor,
Right.
if that's what the case was, he's still covered under the Federal Prompt Payment Act, which states that a subcontractor shall be paid within 7 days of the receipt of money by the prime contractor. So he would have been federally guaranteed under the Federal Prompt Payment Act to be paid within 7 days. If they breached that contract, the next step is to call the contracting officer, get a copy of the bond, call the bonding company, and go after the bond. But you only have 1 year to do that. So how long ago was this?
Yeah, I have no idea,
Okay.
honestly, because I just found out this morning, or a couple hours, maybe an hour ago. That's why I was seeing if I could contact you. I was trying to dig you up again
And by
to
the
see
way,
if I
that's
could talk
another
to you.
act that I can't think of the name right now off the top of my head, but I'll get back to you with the act that says you have 1 year.
Okay. But I'll just tell him he had a 1 year window to do it. If he didn't do it, then he's kind of screwed.
To go
But
after the
either
bonding
way,
company. Yeah.
right. But either way, he should have done something. I guess I don't know. But if you don't know what to do, I guess that's the other issue, and that's where I kind of felt like I got kind of stuck in. That's why I was kind of bitching to you, because I'm just like, I paid money, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? I want to try and make this happen. I mean,
Well, I mean, look, I got guys, I post videos on YouTube all the time. Just in the past, literally 7 or 8 days, two guys have contacted me. One's making $100,000 in 3 days, telling me all about the job and how happy he is. Another guy, an electrician, who is literally working every day right now at a paper mill doing electrical work. And in the side, he put in, I think the first job he got is going to make like 7 or 10 grand or something. And what was special? Oh, it was the ninth job that he bid. And then by the time he had bid 19 jobs, he got $100,000 job that's going to make 45 grand in less than a week. So I mean, I record all my calls and I hear these stories and I post them and
I hear all the stories too,
none of
and
these
you know
guys
what it
have any
does?
experience.
It yanks my balls out because I hear all these stories too, and I'm going, why the fuck can't it be me?
I have no earthly idea, but like I said, I'll give you 2 months access. That should be plenty of time, and you know,
All right, all
nobody
right,
can
yeah,
guarantee anybody a federal
I know that.
contract.
I understand that. I just it's one of those things that it's just, oh God. And I mean, for me, I'm not a tech guy, so I'm on there doing stuff, trying to pull PDFs and script this and do this, that, and the other, and I know I'm fucking it up somehow, or it seems to get to them, but still. And then then they call me back, oh, you didn't fill this out, and a lot of it I think is the bullshit, because I forget now because I haven't looked at it in 6 months. But they have these stupid forms that well, you got to fill out, and it's just like, because we put an addendum in. It's like, I don't give a fuck, you know what I mean? It's like, so, but I got to sign. So you have 13 addendums that all basically said the same thing because they extended it out or something for an extra 2 weeks or something, and I've got to fill out the fucking addendum.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Actually, what you're talking about is an amendment, but yeah,
oh,
the answer
okay.
is yes.
It's just, fuck it. I mean, but there's like 12 of them. It's like, all for the same fucking thing. Okay, so if I'm bidding it and my bid's in on time, why do I have to fill out the fucking addendum? You see what I'm saying, though? It just seems retarded. I understand it's a fucking federal government and they do stupid shit, but God.
You and I would be having a much different conversation if you had stuck with this and just kept turning in bids, and you might be sitting on 100,000 or 200,000 and going, I don't fucking care how many amendments they put out. I'm gonna sign every one
Yeah.
of them.
Oh, All right. I guess I'll call. I'll email him and send him what you've told me, and kind of go from there and see what he says, or
But yeah,
try to help him
you
a
know,
little bit.
look, business is business, and acumen in business is, it's the famous old parable, and I hate to keep going back to the same one, but it just means a lot to me. The young kid goes to the old guy's house and he's visiting with him. He's walking around seeing all this stuff, a swimming pool, a sauna,
Yeah, it all
pool,
takes time.
got everything. And he says, "Man, how did you get all this stuff?" And he said, "Kid, it's only two words: good deals." Well, how do you learn to make good deals? Oh, kid, it's only two words: bad deals.
So you make enough bad deals, you figure out the good deals.
Yeah,
Right.
and so look, you can try and help your friend all you want, but he's going to have his own journey in life. He's going to have his own head trash that he brings in the game. He's going to have his own experiences that help him make money. But at the end of the day, he didn't do any research, got into a federal contract, didn't, whether it was a prime contractor or not, didn't know the rules of the game, didn't know how to make sure he got paid, didn't know, and then learned a real fucking lesson that there's some shitheads out there that will, screw you over just because you don't understand the rules.
Right.
And
Well,
and
that's our government in general, right there.
well,
You just summed our whole government up.
it could be. I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but if you do much research into Trump, most of the money that he made over his lifetime was due to construction deals where he didn't pay the contractor.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
So,
Jeez, I hate to hear that.
so Google, if you Google that, you'll find out that what he figured out was he could write $1 million contract to a contractor. The contractor would go out there and do all the work, and then he wouldn't pay him at the end and make him sue him for the money. Okay,
Yeah.
then he'd settle the deal for 50 cents on the dollar, and then he'd
Oh,
justify it in his own mind that contractors are always doubling it anyway, so I just covered
my
his costs.
grandmother did the same shit, and it always irked the fuck out of me. My grandmother was the comptroller for the Fontainebleau Hotel, and she was number two under the owner at the time. This was back in the fucking 50s and 60s, and she would tell me stories like that. She'd get the building painted for X amount of dollars, and they'd call up, okay, we're ready to get paid, and she'd go, oh, well, we're only paying 60 notes. If you want to get paid this month, we're paying 30% discount. If you know what I mean, if you want to be paid next month, that'll be 20% discount. In other words, if you want to get paid in full, you might have to wait about 6 months.
Yeah. So he got all the value but only paid 50% in the end.
Right.
And if you do that enough times, you got enough money to pay the attorneys and just put somebody. God, I got another client called me up yesterday or the day before. I recorded that conversation, but I didn't post it because it was just seemed a little bit too private. But he's in a significant lawsuit over getting paid on a contract that he was doing, not federal. But I mean, it's tying up this guy's whole life with depositions, and it's going to go to court, and all the costs associated with the blood sucking attorneys. And I just go, good God, in 1,000 federal contracts that my dad and I did, we only went into lawsuits 14 times, and we won 8 of them.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, and the thing is, your dad, that's the one that impresses me, because, I mean, he started from nothing. Nobody showed him anything. He figured out from square one how to get to,
That's right. There was
from
no
A to Z on his own.
GCExperts when I was a kid.
Yep. I mean, that's impressive. Every time I think about that, it's impressive as fuck. And I'm not doing that to, because I'm not talking to your dad, so it's not blowing smoke up his ass. I'm just saying it is impressive, though.
Yeah, it really is. My dad's really something. In fact, I was talking to his brother.
How's your dad doing? I know I know for a while there was some kind of, he had some kind of, I don't know, was he facing cancer or something? What was it?
No,
No?
he's been relatively healthy.
Oh, okay. I know
But
your brother had the brain trauma, but that was forever ago.
yeah, I was talking to my dad's brother about a year ago, and it was real late at night. It was like 11:30 at night, and we were on a Zoom. And I've spoken to my uncle Bud many times, of course, over the years, but hadn't really talked to him much about their career. because he was asking me what I was doing, and I said, well, I'm kind of running this GCExperts teaching federal contracts. But what a lot of people in GCExperts don't know is that the big company that my dad and brother built in the 80s, the one that went from $500,000 a year the first year to $95 million a year in the ninth and 10th year, they doubled in revenue and size every year for 10 years. And I was talking to him about this, and I said, tell me some stories about, you and my dad in the 80s. And he said, here's the funniest one. He says, everybody in my family and close friends knows that my dad's just basically the biggest smart nerd that we've ever come across. He just seems to know everything. And they flew to Washington, D.C. to meet with the CIA about a anechoic chamber. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So they wanted to build a soundproof room. Like, so
Oh, okay.
soundproof that when you walk into an anechoic chamber, you can hear your own heartbeat.
Okay.
And so they walk into this meeting with the CIA about building this anechoic chamber, and they're talking about the size, the material, and whatever. My dad's writing down on a napkin, and he looks up at the CIA and says, "This design isn't going to work." And my uncle was kind of like, "What the fuck? Why are you saying this?" Like, and all of a sudden now the CIA, the contracting officers, everybody, they go, "We need to take a break." So my uncle and my dad walk outside the room. And my uncle's looking at my dad going, "What the hell did you write down? Are you making that shit up?" And my dad's going, "No, look at the math. Here's the math. It won't work." And he was fucking right. And the CIA was saying, "No, no, it'll work." So they walked back into the meeting, and it ended up that contract was terminated for the convenience of the government, because they came around and figured out that Doug, just sitting there in the meeting writing down on a napkin, figured out their whole thing wasn't going to work.
They should have paid. They should have hired your dad just to work for them directly. Would have been better off.
Isn't that funny?
Jeez, yeah. Well, I mean, there's some people like that. That's what do they say? You always want to be the smartest guy in the room, and your dad seemed to be that guy at times.
He was, yeah.
So
There's lots of stories like that, but that was my uncle's favorite one.
right. No, I mean, I've heard a bunch of stories about your dad. How he went to task with the federal government. They weren't going to pay something, and he's like, "No, well, what about this?" And that what's impressive is not being an attorney or anything. Me, book smarts is not me, man. I was not a good school. I hated school, all that kind of shit. I can fucking do anything with my hands, but I just hated the.
Well,
And now
my
I'm
dad
getting,
got screwed over by the FAA in 1980. Did you ever hear about Reagan firing all the air traffic controllers?
Yeah, I kind of remember that, but that's I was back in I was just getting out of high school and everything. That was the 80s there.
Yeah, what happened was the air traffic controllers said they were going to strike, and that was going to close all aviation across the country. And Reagan got on national TV and said, "If you guys do this, I'm going to fire you and hire all new air traffic controllers." And they called his bluff, and he fucking fired all of them. And now all of a sudden they got to hire a whole bunch of new air traffic controllers and train them. Well, the training facility was at the FAA in Oklahoma City, and my dad had at the time a $300,000 contract with the FAA to do some work out there, but he couldn't get to the work site because of all the demonstrators and the protesters and all that kind of stuff. And it ended up delaying the contract, and so my dad ended up writing 95 claims to the FAA. The FAA turned around and terminated his contract for default, which is the worst thing that can happen to a federal contractor. Once you terminate a contract for default, they can go after.
You didn't perform or something.
That's right. And so they went to the bonding company, and I can't remember the guy's name. I want to say it was Steve Schulte or something, but my dad went to the bonding company and said, "This is what they're doing. Rather than allow me to turn in my claims, which I have a right to do by the federal acquisition regulations, they terminated my contract in bad faith." So the bonding company, that guy was smart enough to go back to the FAA and said, "Hey, you can't terminate this contractor just because he turned in claims. so that you don't have to fight them and he might win, and then expect that the bonding company is just going to come in here and pay to have all this work done and cover this whole thing. We're not going to do it because you terminated it in bad faith. The FAA attorneys turned around and came back and rescinded the termination for default and allowed him to go through with his 95 claims. He ended up winning a whole bunch of them. Now, keep in mind that in 1980, $300,000 was worth about $3 million today.
Yeah.
So they went to court, and my dad won. And somewhere, I don't know if I have it digitally or something, but I've seen it. I've seen a photocopy of the Austin American-Statesman, the local paper. It's public information when a judgment is made against the federal government. And so their, reporter figured it out and wrote an article about, quote, this Austin man who just won. Now, it said 300,000 there, but you got to keep in mind this is 1981 or 82 or something.
Yeah, so it's close to 3 million.
That was a big windfall against the federal government, so it made the newspaper. There was an article written all about it. It was a really clever little article about this local Austin man that took on the federal government.
It's just he's the right guy for that particular thing. He was definitely the right guy for it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Looking back at it with all of my career and all the people I've helped over the years, and then talking about those stories, it's really, he's a neat guy.
Yep. All right. Well, I appreciate you calling me back, and I will get with this. I will get with this guy and at least send him an email, let him know what I know, and see what he says and go from there. And then I guess I'll talk to you maybe beginning of next week or something.
Yeah, within the next couple of days, I'll get you all set up. And I'll figure it out, and it may be delayed till Monday, but maybe not. And
yeah, it's all good.
And we'll move this thing forward.
Okay.
Man, right, I'm really sorry you felt that way.
It's not. I guess it is a feeling. I should say it's not a feeling. It's just like, you feel like you get kicked in an ad sometimes, but it is what it is. We've all been there, all done that. So it is what it is. You've been a man of your word so far. So I'll just keep rolling with that you have been, and that's the plus right there.
Yeah. Look, if I was going to hide and you called me 6 or 7 months later, I would have just fucking ignored it and moved on.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. So you did call me back, so we'll go from there. We're good.
Okay, Dennis.
I appreciate it. Thank you, my man.
You bet.
And tell your wife I said hi.
I will.
She won't remember me.
Oh, no. She knows you as fucktard number 1.
Right on, brother. Okay. All right, man. Fucktard out.
Bye.
Bye.